This is your daily Facts Matter update, and I'm your host, Roman from the Epic Times. And now let's talk about the U.S. southern border. And let's start with this picture right here. This picture, which was taken by one of our journalists who is down in Panitas, Texas, which is a city close to the border, and what those are, what you're seeing, are wristbands that smuggling organizations as well as cartels use to keep track of the illegal aliens that they are bringing across the border. Now, according to new reports, as well as confirmation that we received from Border Patrol agents, these wristbands are worn by the border crossers, and each one of them relates to the smuggling organization or cartel that they paid to help them cross the river. According to a former captain in the Texas Department of Public Safety, the system basically outlines a process that the smugglers are using to know who paid, who didn't, so that they can start moving them through, because they've got so many people backing up. Furthermore, according to him, the different wristbands have different numbers, different words, and different logos on them, each identifying them as being part of a different cartel or a different smuggling organization. Things like little turtles, little devil heads, little snakes appear on them. And actually, while our reporter was down there looking around, she found 5 different colored wristbands abandoned on the ground about 2 miles north of the Rio Grande River. Take a look. And as you can see, they have words on them. One had entrega written on it, which means in Spanish, delivery. Another had legadas, which means arrivals. And another, dorado, which means golden. Also, the numbers on the wristbands relate to the peso, or tax, that the individual paid to the cartel to cross the river. Furthermore, if you take a look at this photo here, each wristband also has a personalized identification number imprinted on it. These cartels are very organized. They're not some ragtag crew. In fact, the former captain that we interviewed said it this way: "It is the process that the cartels and the smugglers are using to treat people as a commodity. It's really a sad situation. It's just a gift that keeps giving, and that's why they fight so much over these people." He further told us that the price to cross the Rio Grande River has recently increased, most likely as a result of supply and demand economics. There's so much supply that they needed to increase the price. He said that in order to cross the river, Mexican citizens are paying up to $2,500. Venezuelans, Peruvians, Ecuadorians, and Hondurans are paying $3,000. Chinese are paying $5,000. And Arabians and Russians are paying $9,000. And allegedly, if an individual doesn't have enough money to pay, what the cartels do is that they will collect once the individual is inside of the United States. And what they do to ensure that they get the money, what the cartels do, is that they collect an individual's personal data, and they tie it to the number that's written on their wristbands. And this personal data includes their name, their phone number, their address, any identification papers, as well as the details of any contacts that they have in the United States or any family members that they have back home. And then they have their family and country of origin to hold them accountable if they don't pay. And that is debt bondage at its finest. That's a form of human trafficking. The cartels set themselves up perfectly to put people into debt bondage. Now, in terms of the solution to this problem, this former captain that we interviewed said that although the U.S. focuses on stopping human trafficking and drug smuggling, the core of the issue is the cartels, which he recommends should be designated as foreign terrorist organizations. We're not focused on the people who are the core problem, which is the cartels. They own all the geographic space in Mexico. And if we would change focus as a country and really go after the cartels who operate today as a parallel government in Mexico, that's where we're going to find success. Now, outside of the humanitarian issues, according to Kevin McCarthy, who is the House Minority Leader, 10% of illegal immigrants are testing positive for the virus before being released into the surrounding communities here in the United States. During a press conference at the U.S. border, here's what he said: "When I talk to the doctor to see when they're being tested for COVID, when they get out, more than 10% are testing positive. In a time when the president will keep our country closed, when maybe we have a hope for a 4th of July to get together just with our family, how much spread of COVID is he creating every single day by his policies along this border?" And by the way, this is not the first report of its kind. In fact, 2 days ago, the mayor of Brownsville, Texas, which is in the south of Texas, he told reporters that 7.3% of illegal immigrants down there who were arriving in his city tested positive for COVID. Now, when the White House press secretary, Jen Psaki, when she was asked by reporters about why illegal immigrants are not required to have negative COVID test results before entering the country, she defended the administration's policies and said that more could be done with testing as well as quarantine if the governor of Texas would authorize it. Here's what she said: We have DHS and FEMA, which have stepped in and worked with local mayors, NGOs, and public health officials in Texas to implement a system to provide COVID-19 testing, as well as needed isolation and quarantine for families released from Border Patrol facilities. Their proposal and agreement would cover 100% of the expense of the testing, isolation, and quarantine, but Governor Abbott has decided to reject that. However, things aren't so clear-cut, because the office of Greg Abbott, they disputed that claim and issued a statement which implied that there were strings attached to this federal funding. Here's what the governor said. Border security is a strictly federal responsibility. The federal government alone has the responsibility to test, screen, and quarantine illegal immigrants crossing our border who may have COVID. And instead of doing their job, the Biden administration suggested it did not have the sufficient resources and, remarkably, asked Texas to assist them in aiding their illegal immigration problem. Texas refused. Now, just for your reference, last month, Border Patrol agents apprehended more than 100,000 illegal border crossers, which was 3 times more than the February of last year. In fact, the head of the Department of Homeland Security, he said yesterday that we are on pace to have more illegal crossings this year than in the last 20 years. And it's not just people from Latin America who are coming, by the way. Just yesterday, Axios broke a story. The Customs and Border Protection Agency confirmed to Congress that 4 people who were arrested at the southern border since October 1st of last year matched names on the FBI's terrorist screening database. 3 of these people were from Yemen and 1 was from Serbia. And in order to get into America, it looks like they decided to go through the U.S. southern border. Now, yesterday, Joe Biden was asked by reporters whether he plans to visit the border himself, to visit the southern border, to which he replied, "Not at the moment." In fact, over the last 2 months, Joe Biden has said very little about the surge in illegal immigrants at the southern border. And 2 days ago, when the White House press secretary was asked if the presence of FEMA at the border was an acknowledgement that it's reached disaster levels, she basically sidestepped the question, saying, "I know that we always get into the fun of labels around here. This is one of the steps the president felt would help expedite processing, help ensure that people who are coming across the border have access to health and medical care. Clearly, the numbers are enormous. This is a big challenge." And so, we will just have to wait and see how everything ultimately plays out. Now, we at the Epoch Times, we have reporters on the ground in Texas right now, and they will be bringing you first-hand reporting over the next several weeks and several months. So stay tuned for that.